and welcome to 20 Minutes with FEM. My name is Alondra, and I am the producer, writer, director, actor, actress, activist, and political consultant here. And this is my co-host, Mary.
Hello, and welcome to our show.
Before we get started today, we wanted to first let everybody know that this newscast was made in order to make current news and politics more accessible, understandable, and attainable to the general public. Our hope through this show is to be able to provide our audience with stories, guests, and information that elevates the voices of people who may not have had the platform to do so.
I agree. We really want to ensure that people who identify in communities such as people of color, femme-identifying people, LGBTQ plus folk feel represented through the news that they're receiving.
We also want to ensure that this news is also as relevant and captivating to everyone as we can make it. So we have also linked a feedback form in our description below. We would really appreciate any questions, comments, concerns, and suggestions for us to be able to grow within the show.
And with that, we have our first introductory segment. It's going to be an interview with a PhD student at UCLA in the history department. Her name is Nivedita Nath, and she's going to be talking about climate change and its effect on different communities. So stay tuned for that.
Welcome back, everybody. We're here again with our guest, Nivedita. She is currently a PhD student in the history department, teaching a class from colonialism to the call from climate justice. That was introduced to us by one of our own FEM members. Thank you, Natalia.
And kind of prior to filming, we were having a little bit of a discussion about the climate change effects in our day-to-day lives, and just kind of I know everyone recalls that school was canceled recently because of the fires, which is really crazy effect of just how the climate's been changing recently. But also just more trivially, we were talking about how we've been seeing people take their grad pictures earlier, because last year the weather was just so unpredictable that they want to get the good sun right now because it's been so hot. But I think also juxtaposing that against your example that you gave of a much more real and pressing kind of effect for other students, not just here but elsewhere. So you want to speak more
Yeah,
about
absolutely.
That?
So I did my undergraduate education in Delhi. It's a very different experience, partly because, back then it was heavily subsidized as well, right? So when we think about issues like climate justice, it's really about issues which impact us really personally. What we eat, how much we pay to go to school. All of these are also linked to the carbon economy, right? What we were talking about earlier is how when classes were getting cancelled for forest fires in Los Angeles, just shortly after, perhaps a week later, classes in India's capital city of Delhi were cancelled as well. Not because of fires, but because of the thickness of the smog and air pollution there. Air pollution, which is so bad that lung cancer has reached epidemic proportions in the city. You can't run the Delhi half marathon without accumulating 2 tablespoons of ash in your lungs. But when we think about these issues, right, it's not just more cars on the roads in Delhi. That's very much an issue. But it's also changes in the agricultural system, right, that are produced by a particular economic structure that people have very little control over. So to give you a concrete example, the recent air pollution in Delhi is so bad, and it has gotten worse over the years because government agricultural policies have tilted towards unseasonable crop burning, right? And USAID has been pushing for these policies as well. And USAID has been advocating in favor of multinational corporations like Monsanto. So what happens as a result is that there's less of a time gap between when one harvest is harvested and the other crop is sown, and the farmers burn their crops, and all of this pollution is carried to Delhi, which becomes one big gas chamber. So why this anecdote is sort of insightful for us is that it shows us that the causes of environmental catastrophes are really deeply social and political, right? And the main issue with climate justice being that those who are least responsible for anthropogenic climate change are bearing and will bear the worst consequences of it. So one of the words that you guys will come across as you negotiate the news media scape about climate change is the Anthropocene. Have you heard of the Anthropocene?
No, I don't believe I have.
I know the term.
Yeah, it's one of those things. It's in the ether, right? So the Anthropocene is a term that was coined to denote a new geological epoch in which human activity has changed the biological and geological systems of the Earth, right? And it's been dated to around the 18th century. Why do you think that would be the case?
Industrialization.
Yeah, absolutely, right? The Industrial Revolution, right? But scholars such as Timothy Mitchell, who argues in Carbon Democracy, point out that it's not just industrialization alone, right? When we talk about anthropocentric climate change, we really have to ask, who is this man that produced the carbon economy as we see it today, right? Where are the benefits of the carbon economy accumulating, and whose wealth was dispossessed for this accumulation to happen? So Mitchell and others have argued that you cannot have industrialization without having a prior cheapening of nature, right? To feed the factories of Manchester or England, right, you need cotton, you need raw materials. Raw materials grown on plantations, which were cultivated on stolen land in places like North America through settler colonialism, plantations which were basically worked on by slave labor. And it's not just the transatlantic slave trade, but you also have other forms of debt bondage and unfree labor throughout the rest of the world with these plantation economies. So industrialization is very much an agrarian issue as well. And industrialization is also very much a colonial issue, because you cannot have a carbon economy that is so centered in unequal power structures, right, without having colonialism, right? So that's definitely something we need to take into account when we come to thinking about the causes and the effects of climate change, right? So decentering man-made climate change by questioning who is the man who made climate change, right? How do we get justice? How did we get into this quagmire, and how do we get out of it? Whose leadership do we turn to? So for instance, you might want to look up Nick Estes and the Red Deal, right? You guys have probably heard of the Green New Deal?
Yes.
Yeah, absolutely, right? So AOC, for instance, spent some time with indigenous activists in North Dakota during the pipeline protests, right? She herself was a water protector. So when we're talking about solutions to the problem, it also is about where do we look for leadership, right? What is the problem, right? It's not just about fossil fuels. It's also about how we relate to each other, right? It's about valuing care work. It's about changing human relationships with non-humans.
Thank you so much, and this has just been really informative, and I definitely makes me want to really learn more about everything you're talking about. And
Yeah, is there any way that informed audiences or interested audiences can reach you?
Yeah, absolutely. Thank you for having me here. So I'm teaching this course again next quarter, so you're welcome to enroll. And it's nice to learn from students as well, because if we're decolonizing our approach to environmental justice, right, we also have to think about the commons, right, and what knowledge is as well. We learn from each other, right, and we have to stop privatizing knowledge as well. And it just really strikes home. So commons is a struggle for collective reappropriation of resources, and also the collective struggle against everything which divides us. So learning from each other is really key. So thank you.
Thank you so much.
We'll be back.
We'll be back shortly. And on that note, we just want to say thank y'all for watching, and make sure to check out this feedback survey linked with this video. We really want to hear your feedback and hear suggestions, comments, concerns, because we really want to build this newscast with everyone.
Please let us know anything that any of you all find interesting, any news, any
suggestions.
anything that you all have, let us know and we'll work from there. Yeah. And once again, I'm Alondra, producer, writer, director, actor, actress, activist, political science consultant.
And I'm Mary, signing off for now.
Bye.
Now a word from our sponsors. Just kidding, we don't have any sponsors.
That's fine.
Donate to our Spark campaign. Camera A. Camera C. Camera B. Breaking news.